Hello, and welcome back to the episode. Today, I wanted to record a solo episode and share really something straight from my heart and just a little bit of what's been going on for me lately. And it is going to be very raw and vulnerable and just something that I experienced specifically yesterday. So lately, I have been navigating just a lot of different transitions. One of those being that our daughter Mila moves to college just in a couple of days, and she will be away about 3 hours away from us. And at the same time, I'm having to make some decisions regarding just some health matters. Nothing to worry about, but still things that I have to make certain decisions. And these require just a lot of clarity as well as courage, but it also requires just a lot of research that I'm doing on my part. And actually, because of that and because of these different situations, it's really been hard to really stay really grounded. And so I've added even meditation, and I've so far been 25 days consecutively of doing meditation. And one of the things that has happened recently is that I have found myself really missing my mom. Especially yesterday, I was looking through some pictures and videos of the day before my mom died, before she took her last breath, and I just started to cry. I was very overwhelmed and really missing her a lot and wishing she were here now in order to really give me her wisdom. And I literally was just saying almost out loud, like, Mami, te extraño, like, Mami, I miss you. And I really was wanting to hear her voice, at these moments. Sometimes, like, even though we know what they might have said, especially in my case, which I had my mom for 40 years of my life, I would probably know exactly what she would say to me in certain decisions, or for her to be with me in these life transitions as my child's moving away, as I'm trying to make these decisions in my life. I feel like I would know what she would say. But the reason I wanted to share this with y'all is because there's this massive societal expectation that grief just follows this linear timeline. And we've talked about this before on the podcast, and this whole saying of time heals all wounds. And I want to again remind you all that that is not true with grief. It really is not that way. And really, yesterday was proof of that for me. And it's been 9 years, 8 months since my mom died, yet yesterday I was transported as if it was just seconds ago. So have that in mind, that again, even though we grow and we do get stronger through time and through our life experiences, and we just learn how to carry this grief in a way that is really integrated into our lives, there are certain moments in which really this unexpected wave will show up. And as I've said before in some of my other solo episodes, is this part of being griefy, just feeling really this sudden heaviness of heart, and it really just appears without any warning. And it could be like you're just in the sea, and all of a sudden just this big wave just comes over and just knocks you over. So I want to share a little bit about how grief really can resurface even many years later. And I've learned that from not only from myself, but just from the different people that I've coached through the years, as well as people that have been guests on my podcast. And there are certain things that really just kind of open this doorway. And I want to talk about some of the most common ones, because I think that we can name that. If we can name that doorway, we can name that kind of moment in which these these kind of moments of grief may show up, and may help us in that moment. So one of those is life transitions that may mirror a loss. So For example, in the case of right now, that I'm in the moment of experiencing this transition of my child moving, that is a loss, right? She's no longer going to be in our home. It's a change in our home environment. It's a change in our routine. So that is, for example, one. It's a transition that can crack open sometimes an old one. It could mimic, for example, when I left home. Even just her leaving could really remind me of even when I left home for college, and then the emotions of missing my mom. Other doorways are also milestones. When we are experiencing different milestones like weddings, birthdays, things like that, that we genuinely miss the person that is not here. So that's another one. Another one is when we become the age that the person that we lost might have been, or somebody around us becomes that age. That is one of those times in which that could creep up. So it is not like our body, well, it actually is. It's kind of as if our body is keeping track of a calendar. Then there's also sensory triggers that may come up. A smell, a perfume, something that you tasted that brings you back to those emotions. One for me is a lot of times when I read certain cards that my mom wrote to me, birthday cards, things like that, these emotions come up. These are sensory. Others can be health scares, certain situations in which we're having to make decisions. If we ever have surgery, I had an appendectomy after my mom died, things like that I had to do without her. And then right now that I'm kind of facing this medical decision that I'm having to do, that also can bring it up. Watching someone else grieve can also bring up those emotions of grief for us as well. That's another one. Another big one is when we're doing something that they never got to do. For me, that would be with my sister, for example, is one of those. The fact that I am a mom, I got married, my sister didn't. So those are things that also can come up and bring up our grief. And then one of the most common are the anniversaries or their birthdays and things like that really bring up a lot of this heaviness again, even if it's 10, 20, 30 years down the line. This year will be 30 years since my sister died, for example. So that could potentially bring up emotions. And then also when we have experiences that mimic even the ones that our loved ones had. So again, one of those could be when we become parents, and this dynamic of now us as a parent instead of the child, in my case, with my own mom. And then there could also be moments in which we may be layered with just a lot of stress, maybe something at work, maybe something in your family life, and then that can also make the grief show up. So again, all of these are just some examples. There could be many more of ways in which grief may resurface. And again, none of these mean that you're unhealed or broken or back to square one. None of it means that. It just means that there is something within you that is still missing and longing for that connection with your loved one, and that you're human. That's okay. It does not mean that you're failing. Doesn't mean that you're grieving wrong. It is just really part of the process. And I say this with the utmost love and, again, transparency, just again, because even as a grief coach myself, this has even happened to me as I'm sharing with you right now. So it's okay, again, to remember that we can still be grieving and longing for that chapter at the same time as we are excited for the chapter that we are in and that we are moving into and forward with, even if we're still missing them before. So before I close, I want to make sure that I share something with y'all, and it's that I am working on some projects, and honestly, that has been something I've really tried to focus on. I've kind of put a hold on recording episodes with guests for the next few months. Again, as I'm doing these transitions, some of the episodes you'll be hearing are things I recorded many months ago. But one of the things that helps me is to be creative. And so I've I am in the process of creating two things, two offerings. One is a journal, and it's one of the things that I use, and it's this grief and gratitude journal. One of the ways that I kind of do, I'll explain more about that when it comes out. And then the other one is going to be a self-guided course that you can take. So both of these will be launching in the next month or so. And I want you to make sure to be in the know. So to do so, please go to the link that I'll share in the podcast notes. It's my website, Grief, Gratitude, and the Gray in Between, and subscribe to the newsletter because you will be able to see when I launch it there. And also follow the Instagram account at Grief, Gratitude Podcast, and you can see that link also on the website. And just follow the Instagram account because I share a lot of things on there. And I want to, again, just remind you that you have a lot of different episodes you can also listen to if you are feeling that you want to connect with someone that has grieved in the same kind of similar way or similar loss than you have. Again, none of us grieve the same, but we all may navigate and use similar tools, and so listening to these different perspectives may be helpful. So listen to some of the other podcast episodes, and I would love to hear from you, and I really appreciate you holding space for me today as I shared a little bit about my own grief journey with you. So I look forward to hearing from you, and if you are someone that wants to have someone walk alongside your own grief journey as well, it would be my honor to do so. I do one-on-one grief coaching as well. So reach out and we can schedule a time to chat. Thank you again, and have a blessed day.